So you've decided that you want to take your first trip by train. Hey, that's really great. So what's the next step? Let's see. You need to pick your destination. You need to plan your trip. You got to buy your tickets, and then you're all set to go, right? Or are you? Hi, I'm Alan, and welcome back to the Pleasure Tripping channel. And just like planning a trip by plane or in a car, train travel has its own unique advantages and challenges. And this video that we're going to do today is all about focusing on getting you from point A to point B and doing it the Amtrak way. So, all aboard. Can you remember the first time that you went on a trip by plane? I can. I was 30-something years old going on a job interview. And for me, it was a completely unfamiliar process. I'd never flown on a plane. I mean, you buy your ticket and you think, okay, I'm ready to go. But then you get to the airport and you check your bags, you get your boarding pass, and then they send you over to this weird area called the TSA checkpoint line. And you take your boarding pass there and your ID and you go through the line and, you have to go through all the searches and so forth. You finally make your way through there, and then you go through the airport maze to find your gate. Then after that, you have that complicated boarding process. Who gets on first, who gets on second, that kind of thing. And getting from, sometimes even after you get on board, you've got all that safety videos that you have to go through. And if you have a connecting flight, then you kind of have to go through some of those things again, because you're going to arrive at gate 3 and your connecting flight is at gate 36. And, there are all types of new challenges. And then once you get to your destination, you got to find your luggage. And you hope, you went to LA, but you hope they didn't send your luggage to Louisville. Travel sounds simple once you learn the process, once you know what to expect, what to prepare for, what fatal mistakes to avoid. And that's why some people are called seasoned travelers. I used to fly the same route so often in business that the flight attendants knew me by my first name. But traveling by train is really no different. I mean, there's a bit of a learning curve, and it starts actually before you ever get on the plane. In fact, that's what we want to talk about today. Your first trip will seem a little bit like a maze of things that you have to process. There are new ways to prepare for your journey, new things you have to think about that you've never maybe considered before, planning for your trip, plotting out your route, buying your ticket, finally getting on board. Now, this doesn't mean that traveling by train is worse than driving or taking a plane. It simply means that there are different procedures and things that have to be considered when you're traveling by train. Now, in many cases, the process by traveling by train is much simpler, less complex, less cumbersome, and more comfortable and even safer than other forms of travel. But once you've tried it, you're going to wonder, why did it take me so long to decide to travel on a train? So when it comes to planning your trip, let's talk about some of the things that are going to be a little bit different in your travel experience when you travel by train. Now, there are 4 things that you need to know before planning for your Amtrak trip. Now, this is a series of videos that we're going to be doing on traveling on Amtrak and getting ready for your trip, everything from buying your ticket to planning your trip. And so you want to make sure you subscribe now so you don't miss any of these videos. And if you have any questions that come up, make sure you leave them in the comments or send me an email, and I'll be sure to address those, maybe even include them in the next video. But choosing your destination is the first step in the process. Now that sounds like the easy part, right? Choosing the place or places that you want to visit. Sounds a little bit simplistic, but when traveling by train, the process of selecting your destination is a little bit more important. Now, unlike driving and even flying to a degree, choosing your destination deserves some special attention. And let me explain about that. It requires special attention because in order to get somewhere on a train, and this sounds really simplistic, there has to be a train going to that place. Now, in the early days of passenger train service, waking back in the early 1900s, it was the modern mode of transportation. You would be hard-pressed to find a town somewhere in North America that didn't have some type of passenger train service. Even rural communities had passenger train service. And then all of a sudden, they invented this weird thing called the automobile, and then they came along with the airplane, and people started choosing to drive in their own cars or flying to their destination instead of taking trains. And it was as a result of the transformation in travel industry, trains became less popular, and some of the less profitable routes were eliminated. So the first part of your planning process starts by getting out the Amtrak routes, the map of the Amtrak routes, and choosing your destination and choosing the best route to get to the place that you want to go. Now you want to check out the Amtrak map because before you begin selecting your destination, make sure that you can get there by train. Now most of the major city destinations are served through large hub cities and local rail services. It's kind of like flying because you travel to a major city and then you use some kind of ground transportation to get you to your destination, right? But one of the big advantages of traveling by train is that many of the train stations built in the early part of American history are right in the heart of the city. They're not like the airports that are built way out on these suburban exteriors, and you have to take a mega dollar taxi ride just to get into the city. But the first step is to establish your destination and the priorities for your trip. Where you want to go, what you want to do when you get there. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to talk about how I am planning my next trip. I've got a big trip coming up this summer. I'm going to travel over 7,000 miles going through 15 different states. And one of my, I have different priorities and considerations for my traveling. One of my considerations is the things that I like to do. For example, I like seasonal travel. I like to go to cool places in the summer and warm places in the winter. But I also have a priority of visiting my grandkids. And I've got grandkids in Denver and I've got grandkids down in Houston. So while my ultimate goal is to visit my grandkids and to stay comfortable, I also want to travel to places that pique my curiosity, that really feed my soul when it comes to travel. And so I'm going to be going from LA to, all the way up to Seattle and then to Denver and Chicago, all over the Western US. And when you talk about travel, even in a car, many times in airplanes, you have to consider what the established routes are. Cars follow highways and planes go from from one airport to another major hub and that type of thing. And trains follow the tracks. Some tracks were built as early as the 1800s. And when you talk about traveling by rail, you will be taking our country's oldest and most reliable form of transportation. What that means is that there are times when you can't get there from here. I lived in Europe for a number of years, and you could ask somebody directions on how to get from one place to another, and they would kind of look at you kind of weird, especially if it was a very difficult place to find, and they would say, well, you can't get there from here. But sometimes you just have to use the connecting routes to get to your destination, just like in flying. I mean, if the old saying was, if in the southeastern United States, if you were going to hell, you had to go to Atlanta first, because all the flights in southeastern U.S. fly through Atlanta. So your first major decision is to select your destination, where you want to go, and what you want to do when you get there. Now, while choosing your destination sounds a little bit simplistic, it's very critical, actually, because, so far we talked about, choosing your destination, and you choose your route that you need to take to get from one place to another. But now comes the complicated part of planning the trip itself. After decades of experience in train and commuter travel in the United States, and even when I lived in Europe, one of the most effective methods for planning a trip I found, is a trip by train especially, is using reverse engineering. Now, with normal trip planning, let's say I'm going to take a trip in my car, okay? I'm going to start at point A, my departure point, and I'm going to work forward from there. I know I'm driving from here to Dallas, and that's going to take me along an interstate highway until I arrive. And then I'll get to my location, my destination. But rail travel often requires taking into account other things other than just the route you're going to follow. It's going to take into account train schedules, different arrival times, connecting travels, connecting train routes, and so forth. Why do it this way? I mean, why is it necessary to reverse engineer your trip? Well, reverse engineering takes into account everything that you want to do and see and participate in at your destination. For example, maybe there's a concert that you want to attend in a city that's, 200 miles away. You bought your ticket, you made that investment, you've already got the hotel arranged, and you know what time that concert's going to start. So you have to consider, how am I going to get there? What trains do I have to take? When will they arrive? What's the first train to arrive prior to that start time? It may be a sporting event. Last year I took a trip from where I live in Central Texas to Arlington, to Global Life Stadium, actually, to watch the Texas Rangers play baseball when they were playing the Houston Astros. And so I traveled by train up to Dallas, or up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, got there. Well, the train wouldn't take me to the ballpark, but I found a commuter line, that light rail commuter line that took me close to there. Then I caught an Uber to my hotel, and they had a shuttle service from the hotel over to the ballpark. So I had to plan all that in reverse in order to figure out, how do I get there by the starting time? Maybe you have a cruise that you're taking, and believe me, you do not want to be that guy running down the dock waving his arms saying, hold the ship, because they are not going to wait for you. It could be a family event that you're going to, a wedding, anniversary, or some kind of family celebration. But all these things have specific start dates and times that you can't miss. So you've got to be there on time. So start with that fixed point in time, and then check the arrival times of trains that will get you there by that date and that time. So I always found it easier to start with my destination and work backwards from there, taking into account all of those variables, reverse engineering. So as you can see, it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. And I'm one of those people, and I think I've told you this before, but I'm one of those people, I love to plan things. Especially trips. I mean, this trip that I'm taking this summer, I've already got all my hotel reservations. I know where I'm going to go. I know where I'm going to stay. I know what lines I'm going to take, what routes I'm going to take. And I did that even, when my kids were growing up, we were going to go on a family vacation. I planned everything down to the nitty-gritty details, even how many hot dog buns we were going to take and how many wieners we needed, because those numbers don't match up. As you know, there's 10 in one and 8 in the other. And, every now and then a kid's going to need a naked wiener. So you've got to make exceptions for those kind of situations. Another thing that comes into play is the key factor of making the right connections. Because sometimes the train that you need to take to get to one place, or you want to get, for example, I want to go to Denver. Last year I went to Denver and I realized, hold it, there's not a train that goes straight from here to Denver. So in order to get to Denver, I had to go through Chicago. That's the routes that Amtrak has that will get me from my point A to point B. So I had to make a connection. I took the Texas Eagle line from here to Chicago, and then I made a connection in Chicago with the California Zephyr line that took me all the way to Denver. And because we're going from one major hub city to the next, we need to plan that connection to the next leg of the trip. So just like when you're traveling on a plane, sometimes there's not a through route, what I call a through route, a route that goes directly to your destination, that will take you directly to that city or location that you want to visit. So you're going to need to find the right connections that will take you to your destination. You want to do a little bit of research. Check out the arrival times, the departure times of every route that you want to take, and when you need to make that connection there, how soon you need to be there. And some of these lines, especially in the western U.S., they may only have one train a day that goes between certain major hub cities. And you'll need to determine which train route will be that I need to connect with when it departs. What time do I need to be, or what kind of time will I need between those connections? Now, with trains, there are times, like I said, that there's only one train a day going in your direction. So that's the one you need to take. And traveling by train requires some important skills. Let's say not every traveler has those skills. Two very important skills that are needed. Number one is flexibility. Number two is adaptability. Now, one of the challenges of train travel, and sometimes in air travel, is that there is a possibility that you could be delayed. I mean, think about last Christmas when the weather got really bad and all those people got stranded in the airports, and sometimes this can often happen in an unexpected way. So the smart thing to do is to give yourself plenty of time between those connections. Now, when I say plenty of time, when we're talking about train travel, because it's not the fastest method of travel, I'm not talking about a 20-minute layover, but at the train, like at Union Station in Chicago. Instead, it's probably not a wise choice to plan anything less than 2 or 3 hours between trains, just to be on the safe side. Because passenger trains, one thing you have to realize when you travel on train, passenger trains share the same tracks with freight trains, because actually freight trains own the tracks, the freight companies. And so the freight trains actually have priority when it comes to using those tracks. So there's also a possibility of mechanical breakdown or weather issues. And remember, train travel isn't about speed. It's about the adventure, the journey of getting there, which just brings us to the most important requirement in planning your train adventure. Now, I think I should tell you now that I have discovered a hidden value when it comes to making connections with different routes. I call it the unexpected value, because I say it's unexpected because it's something that they don't tell you about when you're planning your trip and purchasing your ticket. You might even say that this is one of Amtrak's hidden secrets. So at the risk of being banned from Amtrak, I'm going to share this with you. Shh, don't tell anybody else, okay? It's the little known secret that most first-time travelers have never heard about. So you might want to lean in. In fact, you maybe want to take notes. I call this a value because the real goal of train travel isn't about how fast we can get there. The real value in train travel is the adventure of the journey. Let me explain what that is. Have you ever noticed the difference between, if you've traveled as a family, if you ever notice the difference between what a child experiences when you travel compared to an adult, what an adult experiences when they travel, if they're all traveling together? I mean, you're focused, if you're the adult, okay, you're focused on, okay, we got to get out the door. We got to get everything packed. Did you pack this? Did you pack that? Did you pack my winter coat? And get everything together, all the luggage and all the kids, all their toys, things to entertain them. You're worried about all the little pieces to make that trip a success. And you run and get everybody jammed in the car and you leave for the airport or for the train or however you're going to get there, even if you're going to drive. And you're worried about, okay, where are we going to stop? Do we have enough gas? And I mean, you've got this endless list in your head of things to plan for to make it a successful trip. What's your child thinking about? He's looking out the window and said, Dad, look at all those buffalo. Dad, did you see the snow on the tops of the mountains? They're enjoying the experience. And my parents used to challenge my brother and I to count how many oil rigs. We're in Texas, okay? We counted how many oil rigs off, who could count the most out of their side of the car as we made a trip through West Texas. So when you make connections and you're going to your destination and you go to a connecting hub and you're making a connection to get from, let's say, from Central Texas to Chicago to Denver, and that connecting line is in Chicago. Keep this in mind. There are times when you're connecting train for Denver, the one that leaves Denver or leaves Chicago for Denver, may leave the station in Chicago before you ever get to Chicago. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hold it, this is a benefit? That sounds like I just missed my train. In one manner speaking, yeah, you missed your train. You missed your connecting train. On the other hand, this staggered connection time opens up a whole new window of opportunity. Stay with me for a minute, okay? I know this is a little out there. But before this happened, you were just planning to go from point A to point B. You were going from Central Texas to Denver, okay? But now you're given the chance to add a whole new portion, a whole new experience to your trip. This staggered connection gives you the opportunity to explore and enjoy a location that wasn't originally a part of your planning, but now you just added a whole new window of opportunity to your trip. Now, to be honest, the first time this happened in my trip planning, my response was not excitement, okay? Because the train that I was taking to Chicago got to Chicago at 3:30 in the afternoon, but the train leaving for Denver left at a little afternoon, about 1:30. I wasn't that excited. I was focused on, oh man, I can't make that connection. Now I've got to stay the night in Chicago. What am I going to do? It's an unplanned stop. Man, I can't make the trip. That's going to add another day. And you know what? You want to know why I had that response? Because I was focused on looking at this as transportation. getting me from one place to the next, not considering the fact that getting there is half the adventure. Now, I've been to Chicago many times. I've been there passing through the airports. I've been through both airports. I've been there for company trainings. I've been passing through Chicago on my way to somewhere else. But now I had a unique opportunity to add adventure to my journey. So what did I do? I planned for it. I saw it was coming. It wasn't a surprise, wasn't a shock. I knew I was going to have to stay overnight. So I got a hotel not far from the airport or from the train station. I had an Uber driver take me to my hotel. I got there like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, went in, relaxed for a while, took a shower, freshened up, relaxed, and called down to the hotel desk, and they had the shuttle that could take you anywhere that you wanted to go within a certain area. And they took me down to Little Italy in the heart of Chicago for a wonderful Italian dinner. Now, these staggered connections can result in what most travelers see as a headache or an obstacle. But true train travelers enjoy the opportunity for another adventure. This is what I like to call discovering the art of connections. It's not an interruption to your trip because I planned well and I knew this was coming. It's not a surprise. It's not a shock. It's a part of that connection. So how you handle these connection challenges is up to your perspective. You can see it as a curse or you can see it as an opportunity. I personally choose to see this as an opportunity to visit a city, to see a destination that wasn't a part on my initial list of things to do and see. And you know what? I am excited about going back to Chicago this year. So when you make those tight connections, allow plenty of time, hours, or maybe an overnight between trains. So you don't, number one, you don't miss your next segment, okay? You don't want to plan too close. And number two, it gives you opportunity to explore and add to your adventure. In fact, get a hotel close by, go out to a nice dinner, tour the city. This year, when I travel from here, I'm going to go from here to LA and then from LA up to Seattle. Well, when I get to LA, I'll have plenty of time between arriving in LA and the train for Chicago or Seattle leaves, several hours later. I could probably make that connection. But you know what? That's after being on the train a couple of days, and I thought, it would be great just to spend the day in LA. I found a really nice hotel that's right next to Little Tokyo. I love, going for Japanese sushi, and maybe I'll go over to Grand Central Market and tour around there. Chinatown is right there next to the train station. And you start your segment on the following day, rested, refreshed, and ready for more adventure. So let me leave you with, 3 final tips for a great Amtrak adventure as you plan your trip. First of all, learn to understand and appreciate the unique advantages of train travel. Traveling by train isn't about speed. It's not about tight schedules. It's all about experiencing the experience of riding the rail and the adventure. So if you're focused on tight timelines and the speed of travel, you might find more frustration than fun when you travel by a train. And it's counterproductive to what train travel is all about. This might sound like a weird example, but it's kind of like taking a vegan to a barbecue. I mean, somewhere there's a missed opportunity. Somehow nobody's enjoying this dinner. And frankly, this is something you could really change your perspective on travel because you're making a big investment here. You're making an investment in time and money for this travel experience. You're paying some hard-earned dollars to go on this trip, and you need to get the most bang for your buck. And you won't need that when you travel by train. You don't need a vacation to recover from a traincation because it is a part of the adventure. You're not just rushing from point A to point B. The second thing you need to think about is the fact that flexibility is a must in train travel. Be flexible. Be open to new experiences. A number of years ago, I called one night and ordered pizza. Sounds exciting, right? I mean, some nights you just, there's that you get that hankering for a particular type of food. And that night was pizza night for me. So I ordered my favorite pizza and waited for a while and it showed up. I went out, picked it up from the driver delivered it to the door and I got the box, went to the kitchen and opened it up. It was the wrong pizza. And not only was it the wrong pizza, but there was pineapple on my pizza. I'm a meat lover. I never thought about nothing ever crossed my mind about putting pineapple in a pizza. And so I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling, the pizza delivery service, and I'm like, hey, you messed up. And they said, well, we can send you a new one out. And I'm like, you know what? I've already waited this long. I'm hungry. It's going to take a long time to get a new one here. Just give me a credit for it. And so they did. So I thought, I've got a pizza here. Why not try it? And did you know that was one of the best pizzas I think I ever had? I allowed myself to be a little flexible in what I was going to enjoy. Flexibility allows you to have new experiences that you never thought about. I never thought about putting pineapple on my pizza, but now sometimes I order it with pineapple. It opens the door to converting your trip interruptions into new experiences. Take advantage of what some people might see as an inconvenience and make it an opportunity. I've always been convinced that traveling by train is a form of travel that has been lost to the impatience of travelers. Americans are super impatient, just like baseball. Baseball has been lost to the impatient. There are some people who can't sit through 5 innings, let alone 9 innings. But when you find yourself stressing out over your schedule, stressing out over timelines, you have just missed an opportunity for adventure. Well-made plans will assure the fact that your journey will not be another stress point. It will be an opportunity to unwind and enjoy that journey. Now, the last thing that you need to consider is to look for the thrill of those unexpected moments. Last year when I went to San Francisco on my train trip, I went to stayed in Emeryville, spent a couple of days there. That's right beside Oakland, which is just on the opposite side of the bay from San Francisco, because Amtrak doesn't go into the heart of the city. So I was thinking about how I could get from one place to the other. Various options. Amtrak actually got a bus that could take me into the heart of the city, but I don't want to ride a bus. And then, of course, there's light rail, or they have a subway system. I could get an Uber. But then I thought, hold it. San Francisco's got a beautiful bay, and they have some awesome ferries. So I took a ferry from Oakland over to San Francisco. Now, nice, beautiful scenery, gorgeous views coming into San Francisco right at the Embarcadero. But one thing happened that I didn't expect. Coming back from San Francisco, I go back to the Embarcadero area, lots of ferries there, and I thought I got on the right one, but I didn't. And I ended up taking a ferry that took me about 10 or 15 miles past where my ferry point started. And I didn't realize it because, you're on a ferry, you've never been there before, you're just enjoying the ride. And when we pulled into the dock, I thought, hold it, this isn't the place where I got on this ferry. Come to find out, I took up my GPS and lo and behold, I was about 15 miles away from my hotel. So what did I do? I mean, I could have corrected it, but the only way to correct it is get back on the ferry, go back to San Francisco and get on the right ferry and then go to my destination. So I waited calmly, called an Uber, and they took me right to my hotel. It was an interruption, but you sometimes have to take opportunities that are interruptions and create an adventure. Anticipate turning that delay or staggered connection into an opportunity. When you have a flight delay or an unexpected cancellation, you could be stuck in an airport for hours and days. And you know what they'd love to do? They'd love to get you on the plane and then get you stuck out on the tarmac for 4 or 5 or 6 hours, and you are not going anywhere. But when you have a staggered connection on a train, you're in the heart of the city. You're right where all the opportunities are to explore. So make your own adventure. Make your own happiness. Remember, this isn't a trip. It's a journey. All aboard.